that the big dream that you would dare yourself to dream once in a while and admit to is like, I'd like to be a screenwriter. I'd like to write movies and things that people want to see. So that was the big time dream. And I was fortunate enough to like find myself at a fork in the road where I was like,
it still hits, I don't miss. I just go like a go flow, and I'm almost known. And I told you so when I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close to the Joe Smoke goes, and I'm on my grind. That is all the time. I do not do breaks. That's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, a little more cash than it came with. Ready, that cat is out that bad, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me. I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both. Even do this. Word.
This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On The Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On The Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. What's up, podcast? It's Bill Corcoran Jr. here in the Blue Door Studio, protected by our friends at Ritchie Security Solutions. Gabrielle D'Amico, welcome to the On The Stacks podcast.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
This is great to have you here. And, for you, I mean, are you used to being in front of the camera as a writer, or are you normally just like, at home in front of the typewriter all day?
Pretty much in front of, a laptop and typing and doing a lot of that. I have some PR and like communication stuff and media relations in my professional background that is probably some good training, but it's always probably a little bit more comfortable for the writer to be behind that laptop screen.
With all kinds of writer's block, of course.
Oh, everything,
Right.
all the resistance, all the fun things that make it more and more difficult for you to do what you're there to do.
A lot of sticky notes, I imagine.
Everything, yeah. Telling you to keep going, telling you what you've done wrong, telling you things to rethink. But yeah, littering your space with anything that you can to keep you going is so important because it's real easy to let other things interfere with the process as a way of procrastinating or resisting the hard work.
Yeah. So do you go by Gabby? Because I feel like the longer this episode goes on, and if I'm calling you Gabrielle, and everybody that knows you is listening to this, like this guy doesn't even know her. He's calling her Gabrielle. She does not go by Gabrielle.
Gabby is like probably what 90% of people call me, with the exception of my family. With them, it's still very much a Gabrielle, a hard 3-syllable name, but
yeah, still the Gabrielle, like as if you're getting in trouble and you're getting yelled at, and it's
Always.
like, Gabrielle,
yes,
come downstairs.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but no, Gabby is like the name that almost everyone calls me, and it's funny. It's like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Now I love it, and I'm like, oh, that's so great. Like that. You're just Gabby. It's a great name.
Yeah, easy. Gabby. It's easy. Yeah, you can't screw that up, but you could screw up D'Amico.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Which actually isn't D'Amico, and I know that, right? It's actually D'Amico.
It really, I think, should be, and that's like
be,
the
right?
word nerd coming out in me. That's like, wait, after an apostrophe, you say the letter as a letter, and all that kind of stuff. So I think technically it's probably D'Amico, but it's my married name, and I would feel really weird coming in and being like, you're all saying this wrong. I know you were born
like,
with
hey,
this
listen,
name.
like this is your name, but you're wrong.
You're wrong. It should be D'Amico. So we're just D'Amico, and it's like, great, you know?
Yeah.
But my maiden name was actually Lamb. So it's, that's a not very, common
Lamb.
name.
I don't know any Lambs.
No, Lamb. And, so when you're Gabby Lamb, like, people don't forget that real fast.
Yeah. What was that like growing up as a kid with a Lamb as the last name? So,
you know what? It's really funny, but I sort of again, grew to love it because I have 3 brothers. And so and I'm number 3 in a line of 4. And so by the time I came along, all the cool nicknames had been kind of taken. Chops, Lamb Chops, Sheep, Bah, all of it.
Yeah.
And it was like a term, all of it was out of endearment. I think Chops might have been on one of my brother's soccer jerseys as the name, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of fun to have that name, but I was also like, all right, boys.
You didn't get any cool nickname?
I didn't.
They took it all.
They did. They definitely took it all. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I know. Only girl.
The Lamb, they had all the glory with the...
They did. They definitely did. And
dang.
Yeah, I had Chops and all these cool things. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just be Gabby. And you all can carry on that legacy. And I'm going to be D'Amico now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Screw that. Yeah. I'm going with the last name that nobody can pronounce now. So.
Yeah.
So growing up, were you, did you always consider yourself were you funny? Did people think you were funny?
It's funny. I think when you have 3 brothers and you're the only girl, you better have a sense of humor. You better be pretty flexible. You better be prepared to lose a lot of the battles for what are we watching sort
maybe
of thing.
Take a punch or two every now and again.
Yep.
Over the remote, I'm sure.
Oh, always, because it's it's funny because I always tell people I'm a football fan and I like fantasy football, I like NFL football, and people are always like, oh, what got you into football? I'm like, there was no other choice.
Yeah,
there was no other choice
on
Sunday. Yeah, it was football or don't watch anything. So, so you better have a pretty good sense of humor. And honestly, I come from a funny family. We have a really good time together. My brothers are very funny, and I just think we just all always played off of that kind of humorous energy and tried to see the humor in almost everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So growing up with all the boys, you had what we just watched. That was it. Sports.
Yeah, sports and sci-fi. So they were super into Star Wars and all those sorts of things that maybe I wouldn't have been into, but.
So did you get into that stuff then too?
I kind of did because again, there was no choice, but also because it was really good, So the resistance of no, I don't want to watch that, blah, 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 blah. And then you do anyway and you get really into it. So there was absolutely all of that. So yeah, there was a lot of battles. There was a lot of, being the only girl, there was certainly some perks, but overall it was a lot of probably concessions. So
yeah. Once you were old enough or strong enough to be able to punch them back and kind of fight for the remote, what were some things that you kind of, got into that maybe just discovered on your own?
Yeah, well, if I was going to start a fight, it was probably over the amount of time I needed in the bathroom to get ready in the morning, and everybody else
that's a big struggle.
Yeah, and everyone else was fighting for it, and I was like, nope, I need all the time. I need to get ready. I need to do my thing. So that was probably, if they had a vice with me, it would probably be that. You definitely hit that age where it's suddenly you're very conscious of the fact that you're a girl, and there's things you got to do to keep that going. So
yeah. So did I see you're a Raiders fan?
I am a Raiders fan.
Fan. So did you become a Raiders fan because of your brothers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother Michael, he's only about, I'm going to say 16 months older than me, so we're actually fairly close in age, and he was a Raiders fan, and this is going back to the Bo Jackson era and just a really awesome time. And I was like, well, I think I like them too. And so he totally got me into it. And that was great when they're good. They haven't been great in a long time.
But they've been a lot better.
They've been a lot better. The last few years have definitely been better. But there's they still like, have the ability to devastate a Sunday for
yeah, a lot of disappointments.
Yeah, so I'm always like, thanks a lot, Mike. Why couldn't you like another team that wasn't going to break my heart all the time? But here we are. Yeah. We are Raiders fans. They're the Las Vegas Raiders now.
Yeah. Do you ever dress up, wear like the big picky spike things and all kinds of crazy
I think
face paint, war paint?
I did sit in the Black Hole once in Las Vegas. So I went to a game in the fall and we were like, we're sitting in the Black Hole. It's going to be amazing. And I thought we can go crazy because, they're nuts. And like the Black Hole,
nuts.
They're like, this is not a kid-friendly section. Like they're very clear about all of that. And I was like, this is going to be fantastic. I'm going to let like my like Raiders just hang out. But what's funny is since they moved to Vegas, it's there's just as many away fans there as home fans because it's Vegas and anyone wants to go there. So if you're going to go see any kind of game, a Broncos game, a whatever game, why not go to Vegas and do it? It's easy to get to. It's a tourist place. So I was actually really surprised to be in the Black Hole and by how many away fans were kind of surrounding us. And I was like, and we weren't playing well. And I was like, I better shut up. Like this isn't the time to start talking shit, when we're not looking so hot. But I got to see Derek Carr play. And like, obviously we know his season ended like not long after I saw him and his time with the Raiders has concluded, but I got to see him and, we got to do our thing. And I'd go back and, you got to love them.
Yeah. The good old Raiders.
Good old Raiders. The Raiders.
Is that what they say?
The Raiders.
The Raiders. Not Raiders. Raiders.
Raiders.
Yeah. So is that what they say out there?
I think that's a Chris Berman thing who says that on ESPN. But yeah. So.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
The lingo of the Raiders.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Just win, baby.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
That's it.
Just win, baby. Yeah. We haven't been doing that real well lately.
But they're trying, and you know what I have to say, they do have some of the most loyal fans.
Oh yeah, you're not going anywhere. Like once you fall in love with them, like you're in. And like I said, my brother kind of got me into it, and I sort of followed that lead. And
you're stuck. Yeah,
and I just so happened to marry a Raiders fan, and like,
oh my God.
And I think it was just like that was probably one of the things that was like, oh, you like the Raiders? Like we live in Pennsylvania.
That's like we have to get married now because I'm never gonna find another Raiders fan.
It's us. Get ready, buddy. Yeah. Here we go.
I get to become a D'Amico.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
That's funny. So growing up, like, were you a writer like as a kid? Like, did you take to writing very young?
I feel like I did. And I especially took to reading very young. I was always an avid reader. Got that from my mother, who was also an avid reader, from her mother, my grandmother. Like, it's just, always read. And so I think I fell in love with that written word pretty early on in the process and was taken by it and did. I wanted to write and I wanted to understand how you can convey so much on a page. And I think I was always really taken by that. So I think I did. I probably did a lot of jotting things down and doodling and doing all that kind of stuff that you kind of do when you're feeling this creative itch and you want to get it out. But then as you get older, it becomes, one of those things where it's like, well, I like to write. I seem to be okay at it. Now, how do I make that a career?
Yeah, dude, how do I make money from that? And that was kind of going to be one of my questions. I was thinking, like, were you told a lot of your life, like, oh, you can't do that because you're just never going to make money unless you make it to Hollywood?
No, you know what? Because they never could even put it into words that I wanted to write movies or TV shows. And I think it took me a long time to realize, like, that's how those things start. You're watching them, you're consuming them visually, but they start on paper. They start as someone sitting down and writing a script and writing a story in a screenplay format. So it was like, I didn't even really comprehend how that process started. I just knew I really liked to read. I really liked to consume any kind of television. Movies were my escape always, no matter what. And so it wasn't even like screenwriting was like a word I probably was familiar with. It was just that I like to tell, storytelling meant something to me. And I liked that. And at some point you're like, but how do you like make a life out of this then? And so as I was thinking about different majors for college and everything, it was like, well, you could go the journalism route, which I didn't know how I felt about. And then somebody kind of told me, well, there's this other side too. There's this whole communications area that requires writers and requires people who know how to write things down, how to say things, how to do things. And I started chasing that as a major in college. I went to Wilkes, had, a life-changing experience there. I was a first-generation college student, so I was going into the college process rather clueless. Like, I didn't have experience with it. My parents didn't. We were all just kind of like rallying around, like, what do we do? What the hell is a FAFSA? Like, what are all these things that they're asking us to do?
I still don't know what that is.
I know.
We did it, right? We all did it, but
we all had to do it.
Yeah, but nobody even knows what it is still.
No, totally. And it is still like scary and huge and like this big piece of paperwork that's asking for like
too much.
Yeah, a lot of financial information, and it's just like, oh my gosh. So it was an unnerving process to go to school. And to have that all laid out. So I started at LCC, ended up at Wilkes, sort of did my undergraduate there. And I decided, all right, well, I like writing and it seems to be needed. So I'm going to take this communications degree and sort of focus on that. So that's like the practical side of liking to write is like, okay, what can I do with it? How can I make money off it? How do I make a career off of this thing that I seem to like to do? But then you still have that creative side, and you don't foster that when you're focused on school and getting a job and doing all those other things. So this kind of like itch just kept coming back over and over again over the years. And it took me a long time to figure out, I probably need to pay attention to this other side. But when I did, I was able to really, that was it was a really fulfilling sort of component to, I like to write and I want to do this, but it's like, but I still want to do this other part of it, and I don't know what that means, So you
almost like didn't know what it was, and did you not ever express like that you wanted to do this like screenwriting for movies? Like, did you not ever like express that out loud to friends, family? You just kind of kept that to yourself?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I don't know that anybody was like super expecting me to chase that down, but I was working at Wilkes and I was in a marketing communications sort of position, and they had this MFA, this Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing, and one of the genres they offered was screenwriting. And so I was just like eyeing that up for a long time, where I was like, oh man, that would be really cool. That's something I would like. Love movies, love TV shows. I think I would love to learn more about that. And I just kind of like observed it for a long time on the sidelines, just kind of like kept an eye on it, watched people go through the program, sort of was like, maybe. But, like when you work in higher education, one of the most important benefits that you have is that you can get a free education. And even with a free education, it took me a long time to be like, I'm going to go into a creative writing master's degree. And I think some people were probably surprised by that. Yeah. Because I probably never verbalized it.
That's so interesting.
I know. I just kind of like kept it down there, and I don't know why either. I can't like come up with like, I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel like weird about it or anything. It was just like, you know what, this might be something really cool. It might not, but let's give it a shot and see what happens. And it took a while to commit, but once I did, started talking about it some more, even then I think people were like, so are you going to write like what does that mean? You're writing a book? And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to write this screenplay, which is, how the basis for movies and TV shows and stuff. And people were like, oh, but I still think even now people are like, so where can I read your book? I'm like, I don't have one.
It's like, the first thing you say is like, oh yeah, I'm a writer. And they're like, oh, cool. Like what books have you wrote?
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So it's just a completely different medium when you're working for screenwriting. It's a completely different format. Obviously scripts look a lot different than like a narrative book or anything like that. And so I needed to learn everything I could about it. And that program really taught me. And it connected me to some people that were amazing mentors who were like, I'm going to help you with this. And, you have an idea or you have something interesting and you have a desire. So like, we're going to help you with this. And like, that's what more can you ask for?
Yeah. So your creative writing and this storytelling, like where did it first start? Like what were some of the first things that you wrote?
All right.
We're going into the archives here.
We are going into the archives. This is so funny. So, all right.
And when too, like timeline wise.
Yeah. So, one of the first things that I can remember writing, and it's unfinished and it's somewhere like God only knows where it is, hopefully in an incinerator somewhere, but it's like,
So it was really good is what you're saying.
It was excellent. Yeah. Like that could have won some awards. I was obsessed with the movie Scream when it came out. Do you remember?
Of course.
Like, I think it was like 96 or something. I don't know why I was obsessed with that movie. I thought it was so good. And it took me a long time took me probably to being now to realize, like, I think what I enjoyed about it was, A, it was fun to watch. It was really clever. Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson. Like, I mean, it was just awesome. The writing was great, but it was a movie about movies. And it took me a long time to realize, oh, that's why I like that. It's a movie about movies. And in that particular movie, it's a horror movie making fun of horror movies and kind of pointing out all the little, like, you know, typical things that happen in a horror movie and doing it with some humor while also having it happen in that movie. So it was just this very like meta thing that I guess just like really connected with me. So I went to see that movie in the Gateway. There was a movie theater over in the Gateway.
The Gateway.
Oh my God.
You know what I used to call the Gateway? I used to call it when I was a kid. Me and my friends, we called it the Gateway Correctional Facility.
Oh yeah, that's actually very apt.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fitting.
Yes, very. That was a place. There is some history in those walls, and I'm almost kind of devastated it's not there anymore.
I know.
Because
it's iconic now.
it is iconic, and it's like it's not there. Like everyone needs that movie theater that like they were letting you in no matter how old you were. Like it didn't matter what movie you wanted to see. It was like, all right, you got money, come on in. You need that place where the floors are sticky, and it's just, I mean, that was like its own, like it was just its own world over there.
It was.
And yeah, so it was close. We used to walk over there, go see this movie over and over and over again, to the point where I think at some point my parents were probably like, we're not going to continue to give you money to go see a movie you've seen. And it was like, oh, I'm not going to see it. And then I'd see it again.
See the same one, yeah.
Yeah, and they probably thought I was like a serial killer or something, because it's like not necessarily a movie that's like, you know, it's not nonviolent, you know, but I just loved it. I really like enjoyed that movie. It was like nothing I had seen before. It really rocked my world. The opening scene is extremely, like, you think Drew Barrymore is the star of Scream, and then she's like dead in 10 minutes, and you're like, what am I watching?
Yeah, what just happened?
This is crazy. So I think the first thing I ever wrote was a prequel to Scream.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm embarrassed.
We gotta see this. We gotta dig this out. Like,
I can only imagine. But there's this huge backstory in Scream about a mother who, like, she also got killed, and you know, you learn all these things that have ever happened. And I was like, well, that's a great story. And I think that was the first thing I attempted to ever write. And I was probably real young and like didn't have a clue how it all worked. So Lord only knows like what it actually looked like on the page. But that was one of the first things I remember writing and having this drive to write.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
So
Scream.
like that you kind of just got the itch from that, and like just like kept dabbling as you just got inspired maybe by some other films you've seen.
Absolutely. Bridesmaids. That was another one for me.
That's a classic.
And it was so funny, and it was so unlike anything you had seen to that point, because it was like women being real, being messy, being funny. Like, I mean, that cast, it was just so good to see a movie like that, where it was like, we're just going to show you the real truth about female friendships and how messy and how difficult they are, but how valuable they are. And we're going to do it in the most humorous way possible. And I fell in love with that movie. And funny enough, one of the first scripts I ever wrote, not the Scream prequel, there you go, from like, you know, when I was like, you know, 18, but one of the first films I ever wrote that actually got optioned, the script got optioned. It hasn't been made, but it had some momentum behind it, was what I considered to be The Bridesmaids, but about women having babies, because that was the stage of life that I was in at the time. And it was like, oh, I remember being the bridesmaids and everyone's getting married, and there's all these bizarre rituals that you have to go through, and there's a lot of humor in that. But I was also at that phase where everyone was having kids, and I was like, oh, there's a lot there. There's a lot
to unpack.
Yeah, there's gender reveals, and like they're setting off forest fires, and like it's like, whoa, like let's just take a chill pill for a minute here. And it's, you know, there's a lot of funny things that happen in the process of watching your friends get pregnant and watching them become parents. And you're like, didn't we like pick you out of a gutter a couple of years ago after a night at the bar? Now you're like responsible for this human. And like, it's a crazy transformation that you watch people go through. It's a crazy question you have for yourself. Like, is that what I want? Do I want to go down that road? And so I was really fascinated I was really inspired by Bridesmaids and pointing out the humor of these massive life changes that you go through in your adult, and these, you know, these different rites of passage. But also there was a bigger question there that I thought was really fascinating, which is like, are we all meant to be parents? Like, is that everyone's path, or is that just something that we think we should do? And I think that's what that script eventually became, was a question of like, are you complete without having children? And it was a question I was grappling with at the time. Me and my husband were like, we said we would, but like, we're not really feeling the pull, and like, but we should, right? Because that's what you do. You get married and then you have kids, right? And it was just like, it was almost like deeply personal, but it came out in what I think is this really funny story with a lot of heart. And I was fortunate enough that a wonderful producer in my life, Susan Kartsonis, she's just absolutely fabulous. I met her through the creative writing program at Wilkes. She was one of the faculty mentors. She did What Women Want, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, True Spirit. She's done...
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, she's awesome. And she like very quickly was like, we have something here, and I want to help you with this. And she did. And she helped me every step of the way. And eventually she and her company, Resonant Entertainment, they're the ones who optioned it. And even though that hasn't been made, that has opened up so many doors. That was everything. Everything started with that relationship.
And what year was that?
I'm going to say that was 2016. So they optioned it. And like soon after that, I got an agent. That agent kind of got into my life and was like, all right, here's what I need from you. Here's like, get to writing. Let's do this. And he pushed me towards writing more scripts, which led to Hot Mess, which has since been picked up and appears to be, on its way to getting made. So it all kind of started with, I guess in a lot of ways, Wilkes, but also just a really fabulous female producer who was like, I'm going to help you with this because I see something here and I know you want to do it, and just kind of taking me under her wing and being like, let's do this. So she's still a friend. She's still a mentor. She's still someone that I know I'll work with someday. And we just have a great relationship.
That's so cool.
It is. The power of mentoring. You cannot really overstate what that means to people.
Yeah. And, I kind of want to take like a little step back, and we're going to come back to like the agent thing, how you got the agent. Cause I want to know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are probably listening and watching too, that like want to know how this stuff played out and like how you did this and how you did that. And I know some stories may be, a little simpler than others than what most people would think. But, you, I feel like are kind of almost like an anomaly. Like you were working else, even though you were in higher ed, I'll just call it like the corporate world just for argument's sake,
sure.
Right? Just to kind of paint the picture. So you're working in the corporate world and, but more specifically higher ed up until recently. Mm-hmm. But while you were doing that, you were simultaneously writing scripts and things got picked up. Yeah. And in a I'll say a short amount of time, in like a few to several years, and it just things took off for you. Yeah. Like while you were still working at Wilkes. Yeah. Like how does that happen?
You know what? Like it's crazy. It's hard to like put it into words, but you just become like a weekend warrior. And I think that's what I did. Writing almost becomes my escape from whatever's going on, work-wise, personal-wise. During COVID, it was real nice to like escape into a world where that wasn't happening. So it becomes this escape. So I just became this weekend warrior where it was like, well, weekend mornings, like between the hours of 8 and 1, or as long as I go throughout the day, that's for writing, and that's for me, and that's not for work, and that's not for this, and it's not for that. It's for this process, because if I want to do this, if I want to make something of this, it's going to take every fiber of my being to make it happen. And, when you have an intense job, or you have a job that takes a lot of your time, you get home sometimes from work, as much as you love it, because I did love it. I love Wilkes. I loved my job there. But you come home, you're a little emotionally exhausted, So when you get home, you're not your creative self. You're not probably at your best. You're tired. There's things you're doing around the house, trying to get like your night together, that kind of stuff. So I really just became this person that on the weekends I did as much writing as I possibly could. And that meant sacrifice. You had to say no to a lot of things, you had to turn down invitations to things. You had to prioritize it, because you can easily get swept up in all the other distractions that make life really enjoyable. But I knew I wanted this, and I knew I had to go after it with pretty much everything I had outside of work.
So like while you were doing this, like when you first started saying, hey, I'm going to make these sacrifices and I'm going to spend my weekends and or evenings just writing a few hours or several hours a day. Yeah. Did people, around you know that like, hey, she's doing this, like it may be a little bit, it might just be like a hobby or next to nothing right now, but like, did people know that you were trying to go after this, or was it kind of just like not talked about, like because you had a day job and like everything else, or was it just like people thought like, oh, she's just doing this like for fun? And it's
I think a lot of people probably wondered like, where is she going with this? Like, what's the goal with this, and where are you trying to go? And for a long time, it was easy to sort of like blanket that under like, oh, it's school, it's school, that kind of thing. But I think people in my personal life really quickly knew how important that was to me. And my husband was huge on it. Like he was like, hey, I got this here. Like I'm holding down the fort here. So you do what you got to do. You focus on that. And he was like, he picked up all the pieces, the cooking, everything, and was just a real good partner in that. So I think people realized how much it meant, and they knew that I was prioritizing that in my life. But but maybe not to the extent that they know about it now. Once this news, like more recent news came out about one of the movies like really progressing to the stage of being made, I think that surprised a lot of people, where it was like, oh, this is what it was. Or people who didn't know me very closely, I don't think really knew I had that side of myself that I was doing. So a little bit of both. I'd say the people in my most inner circle understood it and what I wanted. I don't think they really understood what the end game was, but like they just knew this is important to her. It's more than a hobby. It's something she really wants to do. She's got this career, but she's got this other fire burning, and she's feeding that fire. And then I think, there was other people that had no idea that was a part of my life, and were like, really? So you're doing this other thing too?
Yeah, like you're good at you're good at writing movies?
Yeah.
What?
It's like, wait, what? And so so it was a little bit of both, but it wasn't something, I don't know, maybe we do this as like people, like wasn't something I screamed about, it wasn't something
you weren't like promoting it.
No, and I wasn't like super loud about it, and I wasn't it was something, I don't know why, I was like a little bit precious about it, I guess, and just kept it a little bit to myself. But I'm not sure why we do that. Maybe we do that as like people.
Is that like a writer's thing though? Maybe it
might be a writer's thing. You don't want to curse anything, or you don't want to like overstate a success and get people excited for nothing. It might be that. It might also be like an artist, like just any kind of creative person, just like, I want to protect this with everything. I don't want other opinions and insight. I don't want other things to come into this, like, this protective zone I've created around my art. Not to be funny about it, but
you don't want people's opinions.
Yeah, you don't want anything marring it. So I think that was part of it too, was just like kind of protecting it. But you know what the funny thing is? Like when you start talking about it and when you start getting open about it, you realize how enthusiastic people are about it. So it doesn't always benefit you to keep things in and to not let other people in, because since some of the more recent news came out, people have been so awesome and so interested and so amazing about it that it really makes you like realize, no, you need people in your corner. You need people asking questions and pushing you along.
Yeah, and it's so cool. I mean, it's great to see people supporting you and in the way that they are, and it's just such a unique story. Like you said, like a lot of people just had no idea.
Yeah, and it was like and even with schooling and everything else, it was just something they didn't really know. And I don't know. I'm guess I'm pretty glad it's out there now, because it explains probably to more people like what I'm doing.
Yeah, like maybe like the last 10 years of your life. Does that sound about right?
Why doesn't she come out? Like, where is she?
Yeah, boy, she's doing a lot of like extra work at home.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it explains some things to people about like where my priorities have maybe been.
Yeah. So what was that experience like for you to have to, because you recently gave up the 9-to-5 job at Wilkes, which you were, I think, there for like 16 years, right?
Yeah.
What was that experience like, deciding to leave there? Like, how did that weigh on you?
Oh man, I mean, it was something I really mulled over quite a bit, because I always knew in my head, I think, like I would never leave that job unless something amazing happened, in this other space. And then something really cool and amazing did happen. And it turns out it doesn't make it any easier to say goodbye to something else that you really love. So I had to sit back for a while and kind of do the whole, like, is this the right thing? Are the signs, the magical signs we're always looking for in life, instead of just making a decision. I let the signs, like, oh my God, all the signs are telling me like, this is the time, this is the right decision. And I went back and forth over for quite a while. I would say like, especially the last like few months, it was like something that was like, how long am I going to do this? What are we going to do about, and I just went back and forth. Then this big thing happened and I'm like, ooh, this feels like a big sign that like maybe it's time to start thinking about this. And seriously about maybe just doing this full time now, just being a full-time writer. I think, there just became this like fork in the road that I had been asking for a long time with the creative work. Like I knew as much as I loved Wilkes and I wanted to, I could stay there forever, that the big dream that you would dare yourself to dream once in a while and admit to is like, I'd like to be a screenwriter. I'd like to write movies and things that things that people want to see. And so that was the big time dream. And I was fortunate enough to like find myself at a fork in a road where I was like, for as long as I'm not putting my energy towards that all the time, I'm probably only going to have these little morsels of hope hit me and that kind of thing. But, if I'm going to put all my energy towards it, the momentum's in my favor. I've had, I had something like really cool happen. It was just sort of like, just felt like life was telling me like, it's time to go chase this. And you can choose to go the safe route and keep the 9 to 5 and just do your little hobby on the weekends and, keep going that way. Or you can do the more risky thing, which is go all in on something that means a lot to you. And it took a lot of back and forth. It took a lot of planning, but I finally decided like, I'm not getting younger. Life's not getting any like, longer here. Like it's time. And I think I recognized it was time. I had a good reason to maybe take this step now and see what happens. It doesn't make it less scary. But it just felt like it was time. It felt like, and here we are. So it's going to be, it's all very weird. I've worked as long as I could remember. I've never had anything more probably off than like 2 weeks for my wedding years ago, it's a process. It's a transition for sure. But it just felt like if you don't grab this now, like you may not get a second chance to do it. And I decided I gotta go after it.
So like while you were writing, putting in all these extra hours, right, besides your day job, you're doing all this stuff on, evenings, weekends, whatever, you did that for several years alongside your day job, which I'm sure your day job isn't just 40 hours a week, like whose is, right?
Right.
So did you ever feel like over these years, like, man, like it's been several years, like nothing's happened, nothing's coming to this, like, did you feel any type of burnout at some point? Or did you ever feel like, maybe I should just bag this? And because you're probably putting in a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Writing takes a long time, especially a movie. I don't know how long it takes, but I'm sure it takes a while.
It does. It takes a long time. It takes a lot out of you, right? Like it takes a lot of your energy to do that kind of stuff. But you know what? I think, and there were definitely times where I'm like, God, am I just like wasting my life away, sort of like focusing on this other thing, and it may not ever be anything, but it was it didn't happen often. And I think the reason it didn't is because I enjoyed the process so much. When you're on, there's days like if you're, you know how it is with anything. If you're having a bad day doing whatever it is you do, you're like, oh God, like this was not good, And so there's days where the words weren't coming easy and nothing was coming easy. And it's like, oh, this is not the best day. But I actually really enjoyed the process. And that's the thing. Being a writer, like you need to love the process of actually breaking down a story, outlining a story, writing a story, then rewriting a story and continually making it better, because that's the job. That's what you're there to do. That's what being a writer is. So you got to really love that part of it, or else, it's going to be a pretty unhappy career, because that is the job. That is the life of being a screenwriter, is just doing it over and over and over again. But you get so much joy out of seeing it get better. When you had a scene that you're like, oh, this didn't really, something about this isn't working. And then you just keep working at it. And all of a sudden, you just nail something in there or you make it great. It's like, oh man, you get so much personal fulfillment from that. And that's what it's all about.
And you just kind of know when that moment happens.
Yeah, I think so. I think you reread it a couple times, or if you're just like really thinking about it and you're struggling with it and you're going on and on, it's just at some point something breaks wide open. And
then you're like, fuck yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, I could just change this whole thing, or I could cut it all together, or I could like make it this and that. And like fixing a problem is actually really fun in screenwriting, because that's where you have to get creative, because it's okay, you tried it this way and that didn't work, we are trying a different way now. So there's a lot of satisfaction when you get to like push away from the desk and be like, I fixed that problem, I got it.
Yeah. So speaking of like the process, I kind of want to, you know, learn and know a little bit more about it, because I know it's still all, you know, fairly new to you as well in terms of, you know, you have an agent now and the whole bit, but you know, at what point, like when you decide like, okay, now I'm gonna get an agent, like how did that happen? How'd you find the agent? Like, take me through that process.
So when after I was done in the MFA program, the script, one of the things that you do in the Wilkes program is whatever genre you pick. So whether it's fiction, nonfiction, screenwriting, playwriting, whatever, what you do in that program is come out with a manuscript. Like you're writing that thing that's been itching you. You know, you're picking that project and you're writing it, and you're coming out with a finished product. And because you're coming out with a finished product, the program is really good at connecting you to people that could potentially be interested in it in one way or another. So I was through the program, and Susan Cartsonas, who I mentioned earlier, was my mentor. She really liked the story. Like me, she was someone who I don't think would mind me sharing that, you know, she opted not to have children in her life, and had realized how that can sometimes be a little bit of a controversial decision to other people, and was, you know, that sometimes doesn't make sense to people, and so she really connected with the story I wrote, because we had that shared experience of being like, you know what, we don't think this is for us. There's nothing wrong with it, but we just may not be mothers, and that might be okay. So she really took a liking to it, and I had some luck with a fellowship that I submitted the script for, and that got the eyes of some of her producing partners, and through the magic of great timing, luck, and hard work, you know, her and her producing team kind of came to me and were like, we want to option this. And I don't even know if I knew exactly what that meant at the time, but I was like, fuck yeah, let's option it. That sounds great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, good. Yeah, we'll totally do that. And so that, you know, that was like, that starts some things of like, basically an option with a script is basically like, we want to give you like a little bit of money so you don't sell this or shop this around to anyone else. And what we're going to do is take that script then and try and develop it. So as a result of that deal, she recognized like early on, like you're going to have to get an agent, because like, you know, there's things about this process I'm clueless about, right? I have no idea. And so she's like, you know, she had some friends, she's out in LA. She had someone that she knew and trusted who was a really good agent. His name is Frank Wooliger, and he works for an agency called Gurr. She's actually a partner there. She's like, you know, I know someone that I think he might like be interested in you. And, you know, she ended up calling me back, and I remember she said, well, it took some convincing, because I think he promised his wife that he wasn't going to take on more clients, but he read the script and really liked you and would like to meet you. So she was critical in making that process happen. For some people, finding an agent is one of the hardest things you can do, because you have to get someone to read your work and be like, I believe in this so much, I'm willing to like represent it and work for it. And so it's not easy, but because there was already some momentum behind the script, it got my foot in the door. And then when he read the script, he really liked it too. And he became my agent, and he's been awesome. He's great. I always say to people, like, he is like someone I can have a 5-minute conversation with and know what the next 6 months of my life are going to look like. He's very direct. He's very blunt, but he's very, very skilled, and he knows the industry, and he's been very helpful. And so, you know, so I get connected with him, and at that point then he's like, well, great, so you wrote this like one script, but it's under an option agreement, so I can't do anything with it, so get writing, sister.
Get
and
back
I'm like,
to work.
Oh, okay. And I'm like, so I just started writing again, and like, you know, wrote a TV show in there just to like kind of play around with that medium a little bit, and I got some meetings and stuff. But
did you have anyone guiding you at this point, like in terms of like any type of content, or were you just like, it was just like, hey, get back to work, sis, good luck, come to me with something?
You're kind of, it's a very singular thing at that point, and it's just kind of you. And I didn't have a big LA network, so there wasn't like a lot of people I could be like, hey, can you read this script and tell me if it's shit, you know? Like, I didn't really even have that necessarily. So yeah, it's a very singular like thing, unless you have a writing partner, which I don't write with a partner typically. So you know, so I just started like coming up with an idea of things that resonated with me, and that I thought, well, this could be a show, or this could be funny, or this could be a concept. And much like the original script I wrote, Now or Never, that did get optioned, it was like, well, that was something that was on my mind a lot at that point, and it fascinated me. What else is sort of fascinating me? And that's how I sort of decided different things that I could write about. Almost all my scripts take place in Wilkes-Barre, because this is what I know.
I love it.
Born and bred. This is like, I've only ever lived one place, and it's here. And I love it here. And I think we have like these amazing quirks that every hometown has like.
Yeah, but ours is better.
Oh, totally better.
Yeah.
Totally better. I mean, like, we have a lot of material around here that I incorporate out of pure love, because I love it here. This area has been wonderful to me, and so I love it. But I almost everything I do is like sort of based on what I know, which is this area, and it's always something that's just fascinating to me. The television script I wrote was actually loosely based on some experience that I had years ago. At the beginning of my professional career, I worked for the Wilkes-Barre Chamber doing economic development. So and it was a hard job, because the city was still in the middle of like trying to come back from a lot. Like, the movie theater was being built, so there was some momentum we had, and we were just a bunch of young people that were like really excited about where the city could go, and we just wanted to get it there. But it was hard to get people to buy in at that point. And I think the city probably still is in that position where we're still trying to like, convince people like this is a good investment for you, that kind of thing. So it was loosely based on, almost in like an Office style mockumentary thing, like, working in economic development during a time when people are like really shitting on the valley. And it was like, and being that go-getter to go out and be like, no, it's good. There's humor in that too. And there's humor in your hometown. And, everything I write that incorporates Wilkes-Barre or this area is like a love letter to it, because that's how I feel. So
I love how I didn't realize, that you really wrote around some of the, I guess, real life experiences that you had, and like really incorporated this area. I mean, that's, I don't know, I'm like fascinated by that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, if someone was like, well, can you set this in St. Louis? I'd be like, well, yeah, but I guess I better go there, because I don't know anything about St. Louis. I have to like live there then and really, get it. And like at the end of the day, I guess anyone could come in and be like, well, this is like many small town USAs, and like we could name this whatever it is, but at the end of the day, for me, it's always like I write what I know, and what I know is this area. And it's fun. I mean, I love doing it. And even Hot Mess, the most recent script that we've been working on, is about someone returning to her hometown after kind of falling on her face a little bit. And that hometown is Wilkes-Barre. And so I love it. And I hope other people do. And like, I just think everyone I talk to, no matter what their hometown is, every hometown, like we said before, it has its like funny things that people are like, if you aren't from that hometown, you come and you're like, well, that's weird, and it's like, yeah, but that's just us, Yeah. And like, we definitely have some of those things around here that I'm sure other people come in and they're like, so you have something called Kielbasa Fest?
Yeah.
Like, what? Or
what is that?
Yeah. What's the pierogi festival? And, all that kind of like those food-based sort of things that we do and all that. And I'm sure to them it's odd, but I think everyone can resonate with the fact that there's things about their hometown that are that are so natural to the hometown that other people kind of come in and they're like, what's a bazaar? I don't even know what that is. It's like, well, it's kind of a church picnic, but there's a big tent and there's a wheel and and
that's
all
so
those
funny. Yeah, because my wife, she's from Harrisburg, so she's not originally from northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's like, so again, 2 hours away, didn't know what a bazaar was.
They don't know. They think you're saying bazaar, like how bizarre, which like
it is also,
it fits.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's be honest, it fits.
Yes, definitely. Yes. It has a dual meaning for sure.
For sure.
Right?
But yeah, people like even from like Philadelphia, like that's only 2 hours away, but they have no idea what you're talking about when you're like, oh, there's this bazaar, we should go to it.
They're like, oh, what the hell is that? Yeah, you guys are weird there.
Yeah, we're like, well, it's like a church picnic, but there's like a huge beer tent.
And there's drinks. And I'm like, wait, you guys are getting drunk at this church thing? Like, what? What?
I know, and that was like our summers growing up. You grew up around here, like
always.
It was like
all you did was go to bazaars all summer.
The bazaar tour was like what you did. Like you went to this one and that one, and everyone like, and you went multiple nights in a row.
Oh, always.
And,
yeah. You just kind of like stood around sometimes, like as a kid, right? Like it was like the cool thing. You go and like, it was like the summer, you get to see your friends again that like you didn't see since a couple months ago. And yeah.
Remember those bingo cards?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Why were those so fun? It's basically like a slot machine. Like, your chances aren't good.
Yeah.
But you're going up, and like for $1, you got 4 of them.
Just rip those things open.
Oh, you'd be so excited.
Right?
It would be like, but like afterwards, like the like when everyone left the bazaar.
Devastation.
It really was, yes.
Yes.
Like, goldfish would be like harmed by the like ping pong balls that you like threw at them. And like there would be bingo cards all over the place.
Everywhere.
And like beer.
Everywhere.
I mean, it was just, it's wild. But like that is so distinctly this valley and like this area. And I love it. I still love those things.
Yeah. So this is a really stupid question, but so, being that it's based, Hot Mess is based on, this area and obviously the name Wilkes-Barre. Did you use the real names? On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights.
My greatest honor is receiving the trust of a family who has lost a loved one through the fault of another, or receiving a call from someone who's been seriously injured and asking me to go to battle on their behalf and to receive the monetary justice they deserve.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. And now we're back on the Stacks.
I did.
In the script?
Yeah, I did. I did, and like assuming that all stays.
How does that work?
I don't know.
Can it get changed? Like,
I think probably
whoever's in,
anything can change.
Please don't change it if somebody else is like, whoever's whoever's hands this is in right now, don't change it.
Please don't change it.
Yeah.
It's just too like, because people here will love it. I feel like people will see themselves in it, and I used like real things and real names and you do that naturally anyway. Like, I have a bunch of nieces and nephews. I'm always enticed to like just work their name in, like just a throwaway, but like Mrs. So-and-so. And it's like really, so you're like, you just do those things and hope it doesn't change. I'm using real stuff, and I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, just give us something.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. Because we had The Office, which is fantastic. And also like as everybody have the experience where you go on vacation to Mexico, or you go to like Bermuda or wherever. And it's like, where are you from?
And you're like, you have to use, everybody knows that.
Yeah. You just keep getting further down. Like it starts with like, Northeast Pennsylvania. And it's like, well, 2 hours outside of Philly. And then it just keeps going. And then you're like, I'm from Scranton.
Yeah. Like this is what I always did. Cause I used to travel a lot, and I'd be in New York City, right? I'd be seeing a client. They're like, so where exactly, like, where are you guys from? And I'd be like, well, do you know the show The Office? It was just like cut right to the chase. It's like, instead of, because the same thing, I'd always be like, oh, northeastern part of Pennsylvania. And they're like, where? Like, what?
Yeah.
They're like, is that a city or a state? Like, yeah. So, I would just be like, do you know the show The Office? And everybody, 99% of the time, yes. And I'd be like, they're like, Scranton? Yes. I'm like, yes.
Every time.
I'm like, that's where I'm from.
Yes.
Even though, I'm in Wilkes-Barre, we're in Wilkes-Barre, I would just say, yes, Scranton.
That's what I do too, because I say Wilkes-Barre and they're sort of like, look at you a little bit funny, like, what? And then you say Scranton, they're like, Dunder Mifflin. Yeah, right. and it's so funny. But I saw a meme recently on social media and it cracked me up. But it was like that exact thing that everyone from the area sort of goes through, where they're like, from Northeast Pennsylvania, from outside Philly, I'm from Wilkes-Barre, I'm from Scranton, I'm a hoagie.
Yes. Yes, I'm
I'm a hoagie.
A hoagie.
And it's like, yes, that is all true.
Yeah. So do you say hoagie or sub?
Hoagie.
Okay.
Hoagie.
All right,
and
good.
I know that is
All right,
that's very,
hoagie.
Oh, hoagie
I mean,
all day.
Sometimes I'll say sub. Maybe it's only like, I don't know, once in a while. And
Yeah.
but then I catch myself and I'm like, no, it's a hoagie.
It's a hoagie.
a
And you know,
hoagie.
you say that to people again. It's
fighting words.
Oh, people are like, hoagie?
Yeah.
What is a hoagie? They're like,
Yeah.
like, it's a thing. And they're
Yeah.
like, that's a sub. And no, it's a hoagie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the only time sometimes I say sub is if I'll say a sub from Wegmans.
Yes.
I think because they call them subs there.
Yeah, the sub shop.
The
Totally.
sub shop. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So
No, I'm with
you
you.
a Wegmans fan?
Wegmans, yes.
Yeah?
Wegmans is the shit.
Right?
They probably don't want me to say it that way, but yes,
Well, but-
Wegmans,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Wegmans is the shit. I love it. Up
It
there.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I worked there as a kid, like in high school.
Well, and I heard it's a fantastic place to work.
It is a fantastic place to
Yeah.
work. I mean, like I even got a small scholarship from them for college.
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
real
and
cool.
you know, it was it was a great experience, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I even applied for like a full-time job there right out of college.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my sister works there. She's worked there for more than half her life. I feel like I don't even know how long, but she's worked there literally since high school, and you know, and still works there.
I know a ton of people
Like
that
she did the
that same thing.
internship thing. She stayed there. She loves it. They pay well. They have great benefits. They have great culture.
Yeah.
The whole bit. I mean, it really is a great place to work. No, obviously
Yeah.
shop too, but
Right,
But
right.
yeah, I mean the whole thing. Yeah.
And they don't have those everywhere. So like you go to other states and I think to myself, oh, where's the Wegmans? And it's like, they're not out west, for example. I'm not sure exactly what their footprint
Yeah.
is, but so then you're looking for like the version of that. And it's like, I don't know, Wegmans is great.
It is. It is. Yeah. Wegmans for life.
Wegmans for life.
Right?
Hashtag that.
Absolutely.
Hashtag it.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so tell me about the process of writing Hot Mess.
Yeah.
Like how long did it take you? When did you start? Like, you know, just kind of take me through that process.
Sure. Well, from an inspiration standpoint, I've always had fascination with reality shows, and I consumed them a little bit and I watched them and everything, but I think I was just always super fascinated by the fact that, people like they go on these things and they put their whole selves out there, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And I'm like, man, like I wish I could have that confidence to just be like,
Put it all out there. Yeah.
Yeah, because they
Yeah,
do.
do or die, it's
yeah,
like-
they're flipping tables on the Real Housewives of New Jersey and they're doing all this, that. So I always had a fascination with the people who would opt to do that. Also, particularly because a lot of the shows tend to be like a younger demographic tends to go out for a lot of these shows. A lot of the reality shows that are popular, like these are men and women in their early to mid 20s. And that's like a time where you're probably not always making the best decisions for like long, I speak from experience, but you're probably not always making the most sound decisions. So I had a real fascination with reality shows and how things, how people recover from that. Almost like you go out there, you do this thing and it's really cool for 5 minutes and it's really this like cool like little blip on your particular screen of your life. Then what? Like how do you go home and like like your grandmother saw that, like like your closest friends saw that, your people you don't even know saw that. So how do you like kind of go back and start fresh? Like how do you get a job after that, and how do you date again after that, particularly if you were on a dating based reality show? So I always had a fascination with that, and that was kind of what led me to the idea. But I have Frank, who's kind of like, all right, get cracking, sister, like you gotta write some stuff, and I was like, okay. So I ran the premise by him, and he was like, yeah, do it. And I was like, well, I want to write this quicker than I've written anything ever. I want to write this in 6 months, which seems probably like a lot of time, but it's not. And
what would it normally take you?
With working and everything, I mean, the first script I ever wrote, that was something I developed over years. So like, I was like, ooh, 6 months is ambitious, but I gotta be able to write at that like quickness. I have to be able to show that like, I'm serious about this. It's not going to take me a long time and I'm going to write it. So 6 months for me was highly accelerated. And that I was committed to it. And it was like, I set this timeline for myself. but also like made it very clear to Frank, like, okay, you
Hold me to it.
Hold
Yeah.
me to it. 6 months. I'm going to get you something. And I just sat down with every spare second I could. And, you know, I had the premise sort of built out. I knew what I was interested in sort of writing about. And in this case, it was somebody who didn't make the best decisions on a nationally televised reality show, having to come back home and start over again after like kind of making a dick of themselves. And so I knew the premise. And so first things first, I would sit there, and before I do any of the heavy writing, it's a lot of outlining for me. Some people don't do the outlining phase. I do it to an extent. I don't do it to death, but I do it because I need to know one to the next to the next. I need to know how it ends. I need to know how we're kicking it off. Even if it changes, I need that guideline. So I would say several weeks, if not several months of heavy duty outlining for me. It's called a beat sheet. It's literally, you go like beat for beat in the movie, like in the script, you know, what is it going to be? How is it open? It's like usually 50 beats makes up an entire script. So did the beat sheet and just kept going back to it, saw where there were holes, saw like where I had issues, like I need to get from this point to this point and I'm not sure how. So like, you know, it's just, it's a real creative, it's called breaking story. And it's like where you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, I know beginning, middle, and end. Now, how does it all connect? What are all the things? What are all the hurdles that I'm going to put this character through to get them to the other side? And then I started hardcore writing, and I think it was like 6.5 months. I did finish a draft, showed it to my agent, who they're great. Like they're not just your agent, they're like a sounding board too. And I didn't have that, you know, I didn't have anyone that I was showing earlier drafts to. So I sort of gave it to them. They had some notes, we made some tweaks. And after a little bit of back and forth, maybe for like 2 months, they were like, you know what, like this is great. And we're going to start sending it out to people. That sending it out to people happened to coincide with March 2020. And so we all know what happened then. And I didn't know what that meant. You know, COVID had just happened and I just didn't know, like, how was that going to impact it? Was it going to help it? Was it going to hurt it? What did all of that mean? As it turns out, I think it really actually, only for the script, because obviously that was a horrific thing. I think it was a little bit to a benefit because people were stopped, you know, like people in LA and Hollywood, like their productions were halted. There was no more being on set. Everything just stopped.
So you're like, oh, this is a great time.
Yeah. So it was actually like a decent time for people to be sitting around like, all right, I guess I'll read some stuff. And from there, I took probably about a dozen general meetings, as they call them. And sometimes it's with people who are like, I like this script and I want to, develop it with you. I want to meet you and see if you're sound. Other times it's like, I like this script. I'm not going to do anything with it, but I want to meet you because I want to get to know you and see if there's other projects.
So who are these people that you were meeting with, taking meetings with? Like
development executives. So a lot of, just a lot of like executives, just people who part of their job is literally finding the next script that particular company or that studio is going to be interested in. So this is what they do. They read scripts.
They're scouting this stuff.
They're scouting stuff. They're trying to find, the next, Oscar winning thing or whatever it may be, or just the next hit. And so they just read. And if they like your stuff, you get a meeting with them, and it's usually like 20 minutes to a half hour, get to know you sort of thing. And out of that meeting, I had this really fabulous woman come forward. Her name was Maggie Molina. She is a former MTV executive. She's fabulous, independent producer. And she was just like, we bonded like instantly. It's like one of those like magical moments where you're like, oh, this was such an easy conversation, all via Zoom, which, we're all still trying to figure out that technology because no one's allowed to see each other. But it was just natural, and she loved it and got it. And she championed the script early on and was like, I want to do this with you. And I'm like, well, good, because I really want to do this with you too. And from there, we started down the journey of doing Hot Mess together.
So how many meetings did you have until with this script until you met her?
Probably a dozen, I would say. There was a couple, and there was other people that I think had reached back out to Frank and were like, hey, like, we're kind of interested, but like, he is so skilled and so good that, and he has such great relationships with people, but I think like he instantly knew like,
Yeah,
Maggie
yeah,
was
they
gonna be a
knew.
good
Yeah, he
fit.
knew.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was like, she's gonna be a great
Yeah.
fit for her, and it's been wonderful. And
Yeah.
and she brought on other producers. That was in like June 2020. She brought on Debbie Liebling, who is this fabulously, incredibly talented woman. Who she is known for South Park. She produced South Park. She kind of discovered the creators of South Park. She was an executive for Comedy Central. She did Dodgeball and a lot of different movies with Ben
wow.
Stiller. She's a former executive as well, now an independent producer. And she kind of brought her on board. So then it was like me, Debbie, and Maggie. And then a couple months later, they're like, wait, we have this other phenomenal woman producer that we love and we want to involve, and that her name is Laura Lewis. And she's awesome, and she's done Tell Me Lies, which had fabulous, was on Hulu last summer, was like the show that everyone was watching. She has a ton of experience in these things. So then we're like, okay, well, this is our team. And here I am as the writer. Here's these 3 fabulous women. I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this vibe. I like these people. And then it was just a process, and they were sending it out to people. And my understanding is that Emma Roberts was really enthusiastic about it really early on. She had a relationship with some of the producers, and they're like, she's fantastic. She's wonderful to work with. So then she got attached, and then they're like, well, we need a director. And then we got this incredible woman, Katie Locke O'Brien, this incredible director. She's done a ton of TV shows that I love, AP Bio, Ghosts, all these really great shows, has this just fantastic eye and ear for comedy. And she came on board, I would say, around December 2022. So it takes time, we're going from June 2020 to December 2022. And then, we had all the pieces together, and they were like, hey, we're going to go take this to the Cannes movie market at the Cannes Film Festival and see what happens. And they did this big press announcement, and that generated a ton of buzz in the industry publications like Deadline and Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, to kick off them going to the Cannes Film Festival and seeing if they could find a distributor and some international markets, because that's a big part of the process, is who's distributing this thing now and who's going to say, hey, you make this movie, we're going to make sure it gets out there. That's a big part of the process. And while they were there, they made a deal, and here we are.
Wow. Crazy.
Crazy. Oh my gosh. Crazy.
So I want to go back. So out of all those meetings that you took, of all those no's that you got, for this script specifically, were there any harsh no's? Of all those no's, was it oh, this sucks, goodbye? Was there anything like that? Or was it just was it what you expected?
It was really a safe, wonderful environment. I think if someone was a hard no, they weren't going to meet with me in the first place. So I wasn't, I didn't have to get on these Zoom calls.
And you weren't getting crushed creatively.
No. And they would say things they would know, or even my agent would warn me hey, they thought the script was great. They want to meet you. They want to get to know you, but they're not going to do anything with this specifically. So I kind of knew that going in, this was a get to know you, and this might open up other opportunities. Maybe they have a property that or an idea they want to develop. They don't have the right writer for it. So you're kind of getting in front of them, almost networking a little bit, so that they can match the writer to what they just read and see how he or she may fit into these other things. So there weren't any harsh no's, but there there was a lot before that. I mean, there's that stuff happens, and it's or someone, I remember somebody early on read my first script, and their take on it afterwards was, well, it's just not funny. And I was like, oh man, just stabbed me in the heart. I thought it was so funny. That was harsh. And I was like, damn. And I took a hard look at it afterwards, and I was like, isn't it? And it was one of those things where I was like, I mean, that you hear stuff like that, and that's brutal, especially when you're walking around saying, well, I wrote this comedy, and someone's like, yeah, but it's not funny. And I'm like, oh, damn, that hurts. So sometimes you get that feedback too, and you just gotta.
How do you get past that?
Well, you know what? I think you internalize it for a second, and you sort of, and you kind of take your little pity party, and you have your moment with it where it's like, well, why didn't they think it's funny? I thought it was really funny, and you sort of get defensive about it. But I think when you're a screenwriter, so much of it is a singular process, right? And then once you have a finished product, you're sending it to all sorts of different people who are going to read it and give you feedback on it. And sometimes the notes, whether it's something as brutal as it's not funny enough or something as simple as this scene doesn't work, you have that initial emotional reaction to it. I say sit with it. Let yourself, be upset and have that moment of they don't know what they're talking about. All these very successful people who have this career I want don't know what they're talking about. Have that emotional reaction, have that moment. But then when you get over the ego part of it and you're like, I think they're right. I'm reading this now with fresh eyes and I'm realizing this scene isn't doing what I want it to do, or the laugh isn't as strong as I need it. So then you get over it and guess what? You get better. And that's it. So notes are an incredibly valuable process. I welcome them with open arms because they always make it better. Always. Yeah. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be harsh at first, but
yeah.
Like you said, it's just it'll make you better.
Yeah.
One little, one thing at a time. And
we all have these very sensitive egos at time, and
especially in a creative.
Oh yeah, because it's your baby. It's like, oh my God, you just wrote
a masterpiece, right?
Yeah, like this is so beautiful. What do you mean it didn't work for you? Start getting
it's the best thing in the world, right?
So you have to give yourself those 5 minutes of having a little pout session, and then it's like, oh, actually they're right. It doesn't work, and I should probably rethink it, and then you get over it, and then it's better. So it's all that's what it's all about, is just constantly getting better, making the piece better, and just always adapting.
So it's in pre-production right now.
It's in pre-production. I think their goal is.
What does that mean?
I think, and this is the first time I'm going through it as well, so I might be speaking out of turn, but I think basically what that means is they're figuring out all the things about taking it into production. So I'm sure they're getting all the casting in place, probably figuring out where and when they're going to shoot this.
They better freaking shoot it here. Or at least something.
That would be pretty incredible,
right?
Wouldn't it? I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all here. I could take them on a whole tour.
Oh.
I mean, it would be great.
Yeah.
And so I think they're figuring all those details. I think that's what pre-production kind of is putting the financing together. They have the distributors lined up. Then it's like, all right, who's rounding out the cast? Who's going to be the line producers and the people on the scene every day on set, making sure this thing stays in budget and developing that budget and the timeline and everything. So I think that's kind of the phase that it's in right now.
Will you be heavily involved with some of the stuff as it goes on? How does that work?
That's a good question. I don't really know. And I don't think there's it's weird. There's not one path. I think for some it's we want you on set. We want you to be around in case we have questions, all that kind of stuff. I think for other productions, it's we're good. If we have anything that we need you involved with, we'll invite you on set or whatever. So I'm not really sure. What I will say is that this team has been absolutely remarkable about keeping me involved. And I love that because I want to learn it. I think it's only going to make me a better writer to understand how these things go from the page to the screen. So I'm really eager to learn as much as I can through the process of making Hot Mess so that I can be a smarter writer in the future. And these people these are good people. And I'm so grateful for that. I have such wonderful people in my corner, and they have kept me very involved, and they're always really communicative and just hey, here's what's going on. And, oh, by the way, what did you think about these 3 directors that we're thinking about, and that kind of thing. And they value my feedback and they welcome me into that process. So that tells me, I think that tells me that I hope that that would continue through the process as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think, somebody that may aspire to do something that you're doing, you're here in northeastern Pennsylvania, and I'll say you made it to Hollywood, right? Right?
I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think, I this is kind of almost a rhetorical question, but can somebody anywhere anywhere make it to Hollywood without having to be in Hollywood?
I think so. I think that's one of those I think many years ago, it was if you want to be a filmmaker, you better be in Los Angeles.
Right.
You better be in Hollywood. You better be housed there. You better be
literally,
available. Literally live there.
You got to move there.
Yeah, you have to be there. And the thing is, LA and California are phenomenal. They're the dream, right? It's a wonderful, if you like the beach and the sun and being in that environment, it's awesome. And I crave that. It's also a very, very expensive, difficult place to live, right? Like it's not for the faint of heart. Real estate is really expensive. And so, if you're at the beginning of your career, like you can't go out, like that may not be possible based on your personal circumstances. So I think that is one of the things though, that like the pandemic has shifted for all of us, is that we all got real flexible. We all got real nimble about how we do things. We all got really innovative. Like how quickly were we having like Zoom happy hours just to see our friends and doing all these things? It's like we're dealt such a difficult set of circumstances, but we like got innovative really quick about it. And I think it's changed a little bit of the way the show business runs. And if you're going to be a TV writer, you have to probably be wherever that writer's room is. So if that's LA, you got to be there. But with feature writing, it's a little bit different because you tend to do one project at a time and you can kind of write that from anywhere. So I think it is more of you can kind of, if you're a writer and you're a good writer, you can do that from anywhere. And if you're needed out there, they'll let you know, know?
Yeah. Do you think you'll stay in Wilkes-Barre?
I love it here. So it's hard to say, but I will always, whether I would like to stay here, and I know I'll just like always have like something here. I know I will. Like not only is my family from here and everything, but I just have, this is my comfort. This is my place, right? And this is what I love. So even if it had to take me away for a few months or something, I just always see myself like being here somehow.
Yeah, plus they don't have Wegmans out west.
Exactly. Right? We already said Wegmans for life hashtag.
Yeah, they don't have hoagies out there.
They don't have hoagies. They might have some other, what's wrong with you, hoagies?
They might have some other type of sandwich out there, but not a hoagie.
Yeah, no.
So,
So,
you'll always have to come back to the hoagie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, this is my home and this is where I'm comfortable, and like, I just love it here. I really do.
Do you see yourself like ever wanting to like be a producer or like in any other type of role in this process of movie making?
So far, I'm very comfortable with the writing side of it. Producers have a really big job, and I'm only now beginning to actually like see that, but they take your idea and they make the rest of it go. They put all the pieces together. They find the director, they find the cast, they find the location, they find the budget, they figure out how to do it, they find the money, all of it. A producer's job is enormous, and they're problem solvers and they're really good at what they do. So I think for right now, I'm very comfortable just, kind of writing things and here you go. Yeah. What do you think? And taking the notes and doing the thing and maybe starting, and trying to make things better. But you never know. Like when I'm on, I'll be interested, like the more I see.
Yeah, once you get on set.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see like, what are the other jobs really like? Because I know about them in theory, but you don't know what it's like the day to day. So you never know. But I'm a writer through and through. So
yeah. Can you give us anything else about Hot Mess?
Well, I think we talked about it, but just it's the girl made a jerk of herself on TVs, trying to come back, start life over, and find out who she is, figure out like what she wants to be, and try and recover from like some public humiliation of sorts. But there's not much else right now, but I just sense, I think there's some momentum here, and I think these are going to be a really exciting few months.
Yeah. So what is next for you, like timeline wise, with all this stuff? Like where are you at? What's the kind of like the next step here?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think right now they're sort of doing their thing with it, and so I'm just gonna start writing something else.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm gonna get right back.
Are you already writing?
Yeah. I've been there's another idea I've been tooling around with for a little bit now, and I think that's something that, the best thing that I can do is just keep writing, and so I'm available for like this team as we get through the process and as we get closer and closer to production, if they come forward and say, we need changes done to this script, or we need tweaks or whatever, like that's the priority. But the best thing you could do is just keep writing and find the new thing and keep going with it. So I'm going to be starting something new.
So when you're writing like something new, like right now, like you either may have just started something or you're about to start something, right? Do you share that with like your husband or like anyone like close to you, or do you keep it all to yourself?
I usually, my husband ends up being kind of like the first person.
He's like the sounding board, huh?
Totally, yeah, and because it's just fun to like see his reaction and do all that. So I wouldn't say I'm too precious with it or anything, but like, so if people even like, if they're like, so what are you working on? Like, you have to always be ready to talk about it, because you never know when someone's going to be like, hey, that's actually like a really cool idea. I want to learn more about it. So yeah, I'm usually pretty like, oh, I'm kind of like, and for example, now I'm like, the idea I'm working with, and it's not fully formed yet, but I'm really fascinated by influencers, social media influencers, and this whole idea of, you share a lot of your life and you're it's all about the content, right? It's all about the content. And I'm very interested in that. And again, probably for the same reasons I'm sort of interested in people who went on reality shows, which is, you're putting it all out there.
So like, would this be almost like another like reality show, but based on like influencer world?
I probably not so much reality, but just like, I think the influencer thing is like this new thing for all of us. Like, it's really young, and actually so much of this technology and social media is very young in the grand scheme of things. But I'm really curious about people who have maybe like how you maintain it. Like, once you find the success in the influencer space on social media and stuff, like, I imagine like you don't make it and suddenly it gets easier. I think like once you get to that point where you have like all these followers, then the pressure is really on to keep it going. Like, oh my gosh, what if they get sick of me? Like, or, if I start losing followers, what does that mean? Do some of these like sponsorships and some of these deals that like help you piece together like a paycheck to be a full-time influencer, do those go away? It seems to me, without having a lot of knowledge or experience about it, and that's the other part of writing that no one like really talks about, but is how much research you have to do in the topic area. So like that will be a huge part of the writing process, is actually learning about influencing and how it all works. But I imagine that's a lot of pressure to carry when you're like walking around with millions of followers. Like, you don't get a day off. You don't get a day off. The content is king, and it's just constant. So I think I'm kind of interested in diving into that a little bit, and just wondering about the pressure and what it feels like to be someone who's like, I want to go and do this, or I want to take a minute for myself, but I have like, 4 million followers that I'll instantly start to lose if I don't keep my content fresh. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of pressure.
Oh man.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, and especially when you're doing it full time, a lot of people.
You're depending on that. You're depending on it, like literally.
That's your job. That's your money. That's your revenue. So like, if you have Amazon coming in and they want to do a paid partnership with you, you're like going to do it. And that might mean you don't get like, it just.
Yeah, you got to execute.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're letting people into your life. And it's just like, after a while, I think you probably, even as a person, you're just like, so what's real? Like, and what's, that kind of thing, I think. So that's kind of an idea that's just sort of out there. I don't even know what it means yet or what it would lead to, but that's something I've been sort of thinking about.
Top of your mind.
Yeah.
So what's that thing I see on your mantle at home? You had the title of Hot. I saw Hot Mess. It said Hot Mess Express, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about research, obviously I when a guest like you comes in, I do all my research, and I'm Googling you, and I'm looking, I scrolled all the way back to like 2014 or something, on your Instagram, and it's funny because that post was, I think, from like a few years ago. I think it's pinned to the top of your profile right now.
Yep.
But it does say Hot Mess Express.
It does.
Correct?
So, yeah. So
do you like put the title of your works on this? What is that? What is that? What do you call that?
So it's funny. This was a gift from my husband. It's a really cool. It's like almost like the old school movie cinema signs.
Yeah, like that's what I'm trying. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, but it's like this lighted sign, and you put the letters in it to spell
them in, right?
out. Like old school. It would be like starring Clint Eastwood or whatever, that kind of thing. And it's a small
outside like a theater, right?
Yeah, and it's like a small household one. So it was a gift from Nick, and he spelled something out on it, I think, when he gave it to me. But yeah, it's just like that little thing that I had that I put stuff on there to remind me. But yeah, Hot Mess Express, that's.
So I saw there was one other one. What was one of the other ones that you wrote?
Now or Never.
Yeah, that was on there too, right?
Yep. So
did you put that on there like before you wrote it? Like,
no,
I'm just curious of like this kind of like your mind around this.
Yeah, no, that was up there after, and I was just like, it's just a reminder, sometimes like, you get so worked up about things in everyday life, right? Like something happens at work and you're like, and you come home and you like, you know, you're complaining and you're bitching and you're doing this, and it's something so small. Having like sometimes the title of a script or a movie that I'm either writing or thinking about or that I'm trying to get out there, it just like kind of puts things in perspective like a little bit. You see that and it's like, oh, well, you know, all right, so somebody was rude over email, big whoop, like, you know, like perspective, lady, you know, this is what you want over here. Like, don't worry about like the one rude person today or the one like, you know, weird thing that happened. So that's kind of why I do that, just to remind myself, like, this is what it's all about, you know, and you have the 9 to 5 and that's important. And when you're there, like, that's what you need to do. But when you come home and you're in this space, this is what you are. You're a screenwriter, you're writing, and this is what you should be focused on. So yeah, I tend to do little things like that. I have a hot mess necklace on right now.
I see it. Yeah.
I have my hot mess notebook.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so
Look at this thing.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It's just, you know, I think it's because it's not just a movie title, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, Bill.
Yeah.
So you got to jump on that hot mess lifestyle.
maybe I'll try it out.
I think hot mess might just be an autobiography. Honestly, when people are like, "How'd you come up with the title?" I'm like, "Well, you know, it's like pretty much like from ages 24 to 34. That was me." So.
So very much insert yourself into this.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of fun with that title. We're like, oh, something happens. We're like, oh, this could be Hot Mess 2, the sequel.
Yeah. So you're already thinking ahead here.
Yep.
Already thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Make sure you write all that stuff down so you don't forget, please.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you do. But
oh my God, when you like become a screenwriter or a writer of any kind, like, man, you become such an observer of life. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to sit on this bench and observe what's happening in front of me. Because
do you just start writing things down like in moments like that?
I will. Sometimes I'll look into my, you know, the notes app on my phone is like always getting a workout because something will strike me and I'm like, oh, that's something, like that's a background character or that's something, like, you know, you're exposed to different personalities and different things every day that can like really be like food for thought. And, you know, you're usually not plucking something completely real out of life and just plugging it in. Usually it doesn't work that way. It's not usually enough. Like, you know, you have to exaggerate kind of everything to make something entertaining. So, but sometimes it could just, the most random things can serve as inspiration for something bigger.
Yeah. And you know, like I'm so mad at myself. And the reason I said this, the reason I kind of asked this and brought this up is because, you know, I'm not you know, I don't write screenplays obviously, but I do a lot of writing, you know, around this podcast thing, right? You know, titles, descriptions of shows, things like that. And it's all real. Obviously it's not fiction, but the point is like sometimes I'll think, like just the other day, I thought of not the whole title, but I thought of part of a title to like an upcoming episode. And guess what I didn't do? I didn't write it down. And guess what? This morning, I was like, I said to myself the other day when I thought of it and I had it in my head, I'm like, how could I forget that? I'm not going to forget that title. Yep. And it wasn't even the whole title. It was just like it was like a couple of words. And I'm like, I was gonna jot down in the notes of my phone like I usually do or would, right? And I didn't. And I was like, then this morning I pull up all my notes for that episode and I'm like, I forget what it was.
Yes. That happens all the time.
Damn it.
Yeah. It's like a dream. You wake up in the middle of the night, you have a dream and you're like, I'll never forget this in the morning. And then you wake up in the morning and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to write everything down. Everything.
Yeah.
It's a symptom of getting older too. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's funny. But yeah, like that's, so I'm kicking myself, you know, it's not the end of the world obviously, but like, it's like those things. It's like, I tell myself I'm going to write that down and I don't, I'm like, I'll remember it. And
yeah.
Damn it.
I know. Yeah.
Literally just this morning I went to do that and I'm like, I'll remember that from yesterday.
Yep.
Well, guess what?
I know.
I did not.
Then it's funny because then you like go through the notes app or like a notebook that you just have laying around and I'll have the most random sentences.
Yeah, then you don't even know what it means.
No, I'm like, what the hell was I? What was I on when I did that? I don't even know what that means now.
Yeah, you're right. What did I drink or smoke that night? Because that doesn't make any sense.
No, I have no idea what I meant.
I'm thinking, I'm looking at the date of it, thinking like, what was I doing that day? Like, where was I? Like, boy, I made this note for a reason.
Yeah.
And then you can't figure it out.
No, I was going back through my notes not long ago and I found one I wrote. And now I remember exactly where it was from, but it was like a girl who's super into her boyfriend's cover band. And I'm like, okay, I think that was from like a vacation years ago where there was this girl that was like almost like aggressively into her boyfriend's cover band and like wanted everyone to be like as excited as she was. And I was like, oh, that's love.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to cheer everybody on. Like,
Yeah.
cheer my guy on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like wanted to make sure everyone knew, like, I belong with the band.
Right, yeah. Head
and it's like-
groupie.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Recruiting other groupies, head
Totally.
groupie recruiter.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So where can, how can people follow along your journey with this? Like as
Sure.
you're moving along with this, how can people follow along that and find you on social media?
So yeah, I'm at Gabrielle D'Amico on Instagram. That tends to be where I post most things. I don't know why. It's like funny, but different social media evokes different feelings, and I'm like Instagram feels like a very safe like place.
IG's the thing.
It is. It's the thing for me. Facebook like freaks me out sometimes. I'm like, oh, everyone seems really mad. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
everybody's mad. There's not many mad people as much on Instagram.
Yeah, like on Instagram it feels like safe. On Facebook I'm like, oh man, like everything.
A lot of attacks
Yeah,
happening.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. So yeah, I'm usually on Instagram. I do stuff there, but I just had to ask because I've been eyeing this up the entire time.
Oh my goodness.
What are these?
Tribini? Tribini, yeah. Jeez, I thought you were gonna crack one of these open like right when we first started.
Is this alcohol?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a espresso martini.
Oh hey ho! Whoa, this is double.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Are you a coffee person?
Yeah.
And a vodka person?
Yeah, and a martini
This
person.
is well, you could take these to go.
Oh my god, this is fantastic.
Vodka, real espresso, gluten free if you so happen to be celiac disease,
Okay,
right? That's
gotcha. Yep.
that's like a real thing.
12.5%.
It's the real deal.
See, like this is a missed opportunity. We should have been drinking these before.
Right? What the?
Would've
Yeah.
been
Oh
telling
my
you
God.
everything.
What were we waiting for?
Well, the packaging, like this is just nice, but
Right?
espresso martini in a can, that's something I could get behind.
Right? Almost
Yeah.
like almost too good looking to drink, but yeah, golden espresso. What do we got here? There's what are the other
We got
ones?
toasted hazelnut.
Yep, hazelnut.
That sounds.
I'm
and then-
a big hazelnut fan.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, especially in
love
coffee.
hazelnut.
Yeah, that's a really good combo. And then this is a double espresso, so you could be doubly drunk and doubly caffeinated.
Yes. What better combo?
Yeah, we could have had our own little hot mess too going on here. We could have had
Oh my
those
God.
and
Hey, listen, whenever you feel you need some inspiration
Yeah.
to write the sequel, please feel free to drop by. I'll keep the Tribini stocked. I actually have a whole row in the fridge there.
that's phenomenal.
So just let me know. I know you're local in the area,
I
very
am.
close to me here. So
Yep.
just feel free. You can pop by. Maybe have a double espresso.
I like it.
and get some double the creativity.
I like that
on,
too.
on paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I liked it all.
You might not be able to decipher afterwards.
Yeah.
But Tribini is great.
That is. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tribini it is.
Tribini is. Yeah. Well, this is great. I appreciate you coming on and
thank you.
talking about this. It's super exciting. Congratulations, by the way. I don't know why it took me. I just this whole hour or so that we've been on here to say congratulations.
Thank you
'cause it's,
so much. And listen,
yeah.
like, please, to everybody out there, like, if I fall on my face, just like give me a pat on the back.
We'll
tell
pick
me
you
it's
up.
gonna be okay.
I'll give you a Tribini or
Give
two.
me a Tribini. Get me to a bar. Like, do something. Like
Maybe a bazaar.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's where it's at.
Right.
That's where it's at. Get me to some sort of really cool thing. Get me a hoagie.
Yes.
Like, just make me feel better. If this
Yes.
whole
Make
thing
her
just-
happy, guys.
Yeah.
Okay?
If this implodes, I need you all. So.
All right. Well, listen, I'll be there. The OTS fam will be there for you,
Thank
regardless.
you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So no, this is great. Seriously, this is just awesome to have you on, and listen, it's gonna happen, and they're gonna keep Wilkes-Barre, and that's it.
That's it.
That's
I love it.
All right. So, down the road, once this thing, makes a lot more progression, we're gonna have you back on.
Thank you.
If you're up for that.
Oh my God, I would love it.
But we're starting with Tribini's the moment we, the moment,
100%.
yeah, probably before we hit record.
Yeah, and then like maybe I could bring some like people. Like we could do like a whole thing.
Could bring some peeps with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
You got any good people in mind? I'm always looking. This is what I tell everybody. Everybody always says to me, "Hey, Bill, like, are you looking for guests for your show?"
Yeah.
And the answer, even though I am booked out very far in advance, the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
But what I always say, and it is the truth. It's almost like kind of a joke, but it's actually true. And I always say, I'm always looking for my next best guest.
Oh, I like that.
Always.
I love it.
Always.
Well, there's so many fascinating people, and like there's
Right?
so many awesome people in this area
Yeah.
who are like living like amazing lives, and not because they did something like completely extraordinary, but because they love what they do, and they like found their calling and they do it really well. Like teachers and like these like nurses and healthcare professionals, man, could we be like more grateful for them these last few years, like being on the front line of everything and like keeping kids engaged and making them feel safe. I mean, there's so many awesome people around here just doing really good things, and that's part of the reason why I love it here so much. Everyone's awesome.
So I always say I'm always looking for my next best guest.
Okay.
I do turn a lot down, unfortunately, because I do get a lot of requests.
Sure.
You know, but like I said, always looking for my next best guest.
Well, I'll bring people, you bring Tribini.
That's a deal. That is. Can we get that in writing?
Yeah, let's sign some things.
That's a deal. Yeah, we'll sign this right when we finish here. We're gonna sign that deal, and I look forward to watching the progress here, and
thank you.
Seeing this thing come to life.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. This is an awesome thing that you do.
Thank
Is this your dream?
Maybe.
Is this your passion?
You know what?
Like you're living your dream.
This is I have to say, like, it's. I never knew that it would actually become this. First of all, let me just say that, right? Like, so you probably don't know like where it like originally started, and like I always assume everybody knows nothing like about my show and stuff, and like from where it started to where it came. Like when I tell people that and show them or whatever, they're like, yeah, it doesn't even make sense. Like, how does it go from that to this in a few years? And it's like, once it started getting traction, and like it's like, oh my god, like this is like a real thing.
Yeah.
And oh my god, I can't believe. I mean, it's almost still surreal sometimes. Like I've only been in this building for a year.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's
like you're living your You're
doing
like,
it. And the thing is, like, I don't think I ever. The weird thing is like I never said like, oh, I want to become a podcast. I want to do this. Like it wasn't like I was like from a kid. I was like, oh, I want to do that. I was always one of those kids that like.
Yes.
Not that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but like, I feel like I'm decent at a few different things, and I like to write too, by the way. Like, there's a lot of this also has to do with writing.
Yeah.
I feel like, right?
Totally.
And it's storytelling, very, similar.
Yep.
So different from what you do, but similar in the storytelling aspect. And it's unique.
Well, you found your calling.
Yeah.
You did.
And people, it's people like you that really make it though.
Oh,
Really. And that's why I say like,
nice.
when I say it's like, I'm always looking for my next best guest, right?
Yeah.
It's always like each person that comes on here, it's different. Everything. Yeah. And one of the compliments I get from everybody is always, your guests are so diverse.
Yeah.
Like I don't have just like, it's not just like one narrative. It's not, maybe there's a common narrative of people like, one narrative is, people that overcome a lot of hurdles, keep pushing, go after dreams, and never give up. And you did this on the side, right, for 7-10 years, and now you left your job and now you're doing it. So that's kind of similar with a lot of the guests I'll say, but at the same time, it's not like I don't focus on one industry.
Right.
There's not like. You know what I mean? It's such a diverse group of people.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've learned so much from all these people. It's like I get a free lesson every week by everybody that comes on here, whatever their profession is.
That's cool.
Not just life, but like in business and whatever they're, like I'm able to learn just as much as everybody that's watching and listening to this. So it's like, geez, how much better can it be? It's like, and all I actually do is I just sit back here and I just push a button and that's it. And then just the whole thing magically happens.
I
right?
think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You are good at this.
Thank you.
I think it's awesome that you have
Thank
a pinch me job. We should all be going for our pinch me
right?
moments in this life.
Yeah, because and like so many more things are possible.
Yeah.
Like like in your story, like how you're a writer and you just wrote a movie that got picked. Like it's. To ask somebody around here, like, oh, do you think that's possible? And they'd be like, no, you're crazy. Like about doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Most people would say like, no, that can never happen, right? And like in like content creation / influencer podcast world, I'm just gonna group it all together, right?
Yeah.
Not just podcasting, but still to this day, if you ask people like, oh, like, is this possible? Most people will be like, no, not here. You have to go to New York City. You have to go to Philly, or you got to go to LA, or like. You know what I mean? And
you run into that answer a lot.
All the time.
Like, not here. Like, what are you going to do here?
Right. And it's like, well, maybe it'll take a little bit longer because, we're not in a huge city with millions of people.
Right.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I got this far.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We got a cool studio here.
I love the
cool
studio.
Building.
I already told you got a killer soundtrack out in the hall. Like, yeah, this is good. You got Tribini.
That's right.
And a fridge.
It's actually, all for the Tribini here. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate
awesome.
it. And
Yeah.
again, we're going to have a follow-up to this. Don't know when.
Okay.
But
I'm
I'm going to write that down so I don't forget.
All right. I'm in.
All
I'm
right.
in.
Sounds good. Gabrielle D'Amico on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.